English, the ability to speak English, in itself is not a test of intelligence. The ability to speak a second language does help your intelligence, does help. It's like seeing the world from another window. Your language is one window, the other language is another window.
Welcome to another episode of School Talk.
Hello.
Okay. You have let me introduce you.
Okay, sorry. I'm eager to see them and say hello too now, and you are just taking your time and, so I just said my own hello, sharp.
Okay, so you've seen him. I'm Adiayo and obviously
Sele.
Alright, so welcome to another episode here on School Talk Cafe. I almost said something else. Well, this particular episode is one beautiful one because this time who went out of studio to go and have a beautiful conversation. I was unavoidably absent, but we're going to be looking at teaching children in their own mother tongue. Is it effective? Is it something that we should be exploring? And the crew, when I mean the crew, and they're catching phone without me in it, but it's fine. I forgive them. I forgive them. They're laughing. Behind the camera, they are laughing. Anyway.
Even me, I'm smiling.
They're smiling.
Yes.
It's okay. So he went to have a conversation with the one and only, I don't know how to introduce him, the one and only Dr. Adegbola, Dr. Tunde Adegbola, and the conversation was around how or whether children shouldn't be taught in their mother tongue or not. So just sit back and enjoy this conversation with Sele and Dr. Tunde Adegbola. Have fun.
Yeah, have fun, because I know you will. Quite a number of revelations in that interview, eye-opening, mind-opening, and well, before I say too much, let's just follow us right there.
Hello and welcome to another episode of School Talk Cafe. As you know, my name is Sele Anemi, and with me on today's episode, I'm excited, I won't lie to you. Before I introduce him, I'd like to say a few things. Before we even started this recording, we had a tiny discussion behind the camera, and it just gave me a taste of what is to come, and I know that by the time you listen to what he has to say, I know you'll be equally excited. I'm actually in the premises of a man who I admire so much, a man who wears many hats and is of many parts. His versatility always amazes me. Every time I've had the opportunity to hear him speak, it's been an awesome experience. I don't want to stay too much on introducing him, so I will hit the nail on the head and introduce him so that we can just dive right into the meat of the matter today. I'm in the residence of Dr. Tunde Adegbola, an engineer, a computer guru, a historian, and a culture champion, if I may use that word. And you'll see why very soon. Because today we're going to be looking at the issue of language barrier. Learning for children, the barrier of learning any subject whatsoever in a foreign language. Prevalent, of course, is English in Nigeria. So the Yoruba child, the Igbo child, the Bayelsan child, the Hausa child struggles through learning all manners of subject in English language, which is alien to him. It's not his mother tongue. And because of this, a lot of our children have dropped out of school. Most times you look at it and say, oh, they are dullards. But are they really dullards? Or is it just a communication issue? Now, if it's a communication issue, why hasn't anything serious, no concerted effort made to checkmate this and prefer workable solutions? And so today I'll be talking to Dr. Adegbola on this matter. What exactly is the problem? What can be done? How do we go about it? You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm welcome because I'm here, please.
I'm welcome to the program.
Yes, you're welcome to the program. I want to say a big thank you for giving us the privilege of your time, because I know you have so much on your hands right now, and you graciously allowed us to come into your home and do this. So I would not take too much of your time and fire straight ahead.
Thank you.
First and foremost, this language barrier of a thing. Growing up in the schools, we were told that don't speak vernacular. Don't speak vernacular. Speak English. And so somewhere at the back of our minds, our local language was vernacular, which meant it was not good enough. So we should speak the one that is good enough. Now that's one thing on its own. What has that done to us as a country? Then moving forward, how has that hampered national development? Because if you make the learning language or the language of learning English, where you have children who would have better understood whatever was being passed across in their native tongue, what has that done now to us as a nation? Does it matter, or it doesn't matter? Does that language barrier or that language encumbrance, does it mean anything serious? I'd like to hear from you, sir.
Well, I think we need to start by taking note of the fact that education starts from the home. Every child in every culture starts to learn just by imitation. Sees the parents, brothers, just seeks to emulate everybody in the surrounding. So people speak and they also try to speak, and after some time they start speaking and they start communicating. So now, what we refer to as formal education is designed to enhance the informal, non-formal education that takes place at home in the community, such that formal education does two important things. One, it ensures that by a particular time you will have learned this, that, and that. That's what formal education does.
Gives you a curriculum.
Yes, well, there's a curriculum to that, there's a syllabus. Whereas the informal learning, even though it kind of guarantees that you will have learned the most important things, because important things will keep happening to you. You'll be discussing important things with members of the community. But there is no total guarantee. That's the first thing, to ensure that a child gets a range of skills and knowledge. The second is to hasten the process of getting those skills and the knowledge. Now, the problem that occurs is because we were colonized and we studied formally for the first time abroad. Now, somebody now comes back to Nigeria with a degree in physics. Somebody comes with a degree in chemistry. And he has the idea that this subject should be taught to children. Say, oh, brilliant. Now, the error starts if you ask him in what language, because that is not his specialization. He's not a scholar of education. He's a scholar of physics. He's not a scholar of linguistics. He's not a scholar of psychology. He's not a scholar of cognitive science. So he is not equipped to determine the language in which his subject is to be taught. But because he learned in that subject and he has never really engaged the subject vitally in his local language, of course he says it should be taught in English. And that's where we made the mistake. So we now started teaching our children in English. And the first thing that happens is that when children get to school, the first thing they have to learn is the language in which they are going to learn. So we spend the first 2 years teaching them the language in which they are going to learn. Whereas they should be learning in the language they speak at home, because you don't learn your first language formally. You don't need to do anything other than just be part of a speaking community to pick your first language.
Because every day it's going to hit you somehow.
The faculty is there, the capacity is there, it is inbuilt in human beings. The language capacity is there. So as you are hearing people, as you are interacting with people, you are developing the capacity to speak the language. Now, having spent the first 5-6 years of your life doing that, you now go to school, they now say abandon that, and then they start teaching you something else. Then you now have some kind of dissonance. You are not, and I mean those days, the way the English language was taught, it wasn't really taught in a way that helped learning in English, particularly learning subjects that we are supposed to appropriate into our environment. So physics, for example, we're supposed to appropriate physics into our environment because there are physics phenomena in our environment. So the examples that they saw abroad and they built into their physics books, we can't transfer those examples and use it to teach our children physics. So there was a problem there. Now, parents started noticing that their children were falling back because of lack of capacity to speak English. So parents then decided, let us make English the language of the home. So the parents then abandoned the local languages and started speaking to their children in English. Many of them in demotic English, English that cannot be used to do anything proper, in an English that is actually a vernacular. It was the English that, it is the English that
they were speaking to the children.
Yes, they were speaking, yes, they started speaking a vernacular, a weak language, a language that is, you will not take your own name. So that now became the language that children grew in, and they got to school and they found that English was not adequate for education. Meanwhile, they had lost their local language. And now one of the most important distinctions between human beings and lower animals is the capacity to use a complex language. So when you start your child up, denying him your mother tongue and speaking a form of vernacular English to him or her, then you have reduced the child back to the level of a dog. So that's where our problem started from. And it is getting worse and worse. If in 1955 we had translated chemistry books into Yoruba, into Igbo, into Hausa, into Birom, into Efik, into Ibibio, into various languages, the translation we had at that time will still work today. Of course, they will need improvement. There are new things, but we would have done a major fundamental work, and it will still be standing us in good stead today. But now we have arrived at a point where we are learning in a foreign language to the extent that whenever we now encounter a technological feat, the gut feeling is, wow, Oyinbo, rather than, Imo. So that's where we are.
So, wow, Oyinbo, meaning the white man.
Meaning the white man.
Imo.
So
instead of
Imo, knowledge. Yes.
Wisdom.
Yeah, wisdom, knowledge. So when you do that, your critical intellect is not engaged. You are not trying to find out how it's done, because you have considered it to the superior, to them, those whose language in which we are learning it.
That makes us subservient almost permanently.
Subnormal.
Subnormal. Dr. T says subnormal.
Subnormal. It's not normal. It's less than normal. That's the meaning of subnormal.
Little wonder we are struggling with technological advancement. Everything we have that we deploy in our everyday living has come from outside. And there's a lot of talk, oh, we should do this, we should do that, government is doing a lot. But this issue is at the root of it all.
It is that it manifests at an even more serious level, because the theory of technology is taught in English in the universities. The practice of technology is taught in the local languages, in the mechanic villages, in the artisanal training. These people, not only are they taught in the local languages, they do not read texts, they do not take notes. They are taught 100% orally.
Wow.
And it works, because we've come from an oral background.
Storytelling.
Now, when a professor of automobile engineering, clever, brilliant, understands the problems, when he now takes his car to the mechanic village and they are hitting his engine with a big sledgehammer, he does not have the language to communicate what he knows
To them.
to the mechanic.
Wow.
Because they understand it in the local languages, he understands it in English.
So there's already a disconnect from the onset.
And technology depends on an active interplay between theory and practice. So the professor of automobile engineering can say, well, say the adiabatic compression of the isothermal, it's nothing to the mechanics. And that is why theory has acquired a bad name. So whenever you say something, well, actually, theoretically, hey, one great theory, theory. So theory has now become a phenomenon, a concept, a notion used to cheat people on the lower rungs of the technology ladder. And because, if it is these artisans that keep the technology wheel rolling. They're the ones that make our cars work. Now, where those ones that are taught in English, in the areas where they are employed, these are the places where where technology doesn't work. They are the ones that work in producing electricity for us. The people who learn the theory, and we don't get the electricity. They're the ones that work where they should provide us pipe-borne water, and we don't get the pipe-borne water. We've been teaching engineering formally in the last 60 years. The Ahmadu Bello University, Nigeria College of Science, and all of that. Till today, fluid mechanics, the most important element of fluid mechanics in Nigeria is for a lady to carry a bucket of water on her head and walk from the stream to the house, or walk from the public tap to the house. So what's the use of all that technology? When millions, a few thousands of years ago, the Shadoof system and the Egyptians were running water through bamboo pipes in the same Africa that we are in. So it is clear that we are not getting the desired results from our education.
Okay. Now, that takes me to the next question that I would like to ask. The situation is already bad as it is, if not terrible, and we cannot continue like this. So, what should be the next step? I know people have been, pushing for learning in the schools in mother tongue and all of that. Now, how easy will that be? How do we even approach that?
Okay. Let's first of all agree that that is the status quo. That is what the national policy on education says. At the primary level, at the first levels of education, a child is supposed to learn in his mother tongue or in the language of the immediate environment. That is what the national policy on education says. But with all these so-called private schools,
I was just going there,
who believe that the way to deceive parents into paying high fees is by saying, no, we are not doing that. We are doing Montessori and all sorts of lies, highfalutin. So that is where the problem is. So the first thing to do is to look seriously at the problem and look at the issues that need to be addressed. The first thing to be done is translation of textbooks, development of meta language, development of a language with which you can teach ideas that our culture did not formalize when our language was developing. But they have now become formalized, they've become part of our culture, and we need to develop terms for them. And that will fill the gap that causes us to code mix. So having done translation, then we go into teacher training of teachers that can teach in local languages. Then having done teacher training, then we can now start with training, implementing what the policy says.
So there's already a policy.
Oh yes, the National Policy on Education says that.
Well, I've always, even on this show, I've said several times, we're never short of fantastic policies. However, the problem is always the implementation of those policies. Now, before we even get to policy implementation and digging deeper into what you have just mentioned now, I believe one of the critical things that we need to do is also make sure that there is a buy-in by the Nigerian populace.
Oh, of course, yes, of course, yes. Because
why I'm saying this is this, sir. As it stands, the average Nigerian parent believes seriously in that English. We measure intelligence with how well you can speak English. The schools advertise, they even put their children out, the best English speaking ones out there, and the parents say, oh, they can speak very well, oh. And we equate that to intelligence. Even in our day-to-day interactions, when you go for an interview, the guy who speaks more fluently has a very serious edge over the guy who knows what he's talking about, but is not as fluent as the other guy. Now asking Nigerians, to buy into local language as a means of learning key subjects, physics, chemistry, mathematics, even engineering and all the rest, I believe there must be some kind of buy-in, and that buy-in can only come from sensitization. Serious, deliberate sensitization of the populace. What's your take on that?
It is true. The general populace has to be sensitized. But the question is, what do you say to them to convince them? We must break down the problem. It is a fact that a fluent person is more educated than a person that is not fluent, because he is able to communicate his ideas. But the question is, what is preventing the person from being fluent? Is it the fact that he's been forced to speak a different language, or is it that the person himself is not very expressive? He hasn't mastered the ideas. He has not mastered the ideas that he's trying to bring to express. So we must separate that. Now, English, the ability to speak English in itself is not a test of intelligence. The ability to speak a second language does help your intelligence, does help. It's like seeing the world from another window. Your language is one window, the other language is another window.
All right, we're back in the studio, and I'm sure you will agree with me that that was an eye-opening interview.
Yes,
like I told you it would be. But you know it's not concluded, right? This is just the first part. And I can assure you the second part is equally explosive. I mean, you watched it, so you will agree with me.
I totally agree.
Now,
but want to know what they have to say about it.
So we'd always like to hear from you. We always like to hear from you. So please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. Those comments are, please, I beg of thee.
Whether you want to take your child to a school that go to be speaking only your language or not.
You know, in the interview we said something about parents, the role parents play, the mindset most of we parents have, and all of that. So what's your take on this? Children learning in local language. What's your take? We want to hear from you. Please, wherever you are, it doesn't matter. What's your take on children learning in their local language? Okay? So, till we come your way, same time, next episode, the concluding part, that is, it's bye from us.